Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 10 of our English Shadowing Challenge. First of all, congratulations for making it this far and for continuing to practice your English every day. If you are still here, it means you are building real consistency. And that is one of the most important habits for becoming fluent. Today, we are going to talk about the habit of using simple English and why speaking clearly and simply can help you sound more natural and confident. I'm going to tell you a story, and you can practice shadowing with me by listening and repeating along in real time. Let's begin our final day together. They had planned to meet at 2 o'clock. She was 5 minutes early. She stood outside the cafe and watched the street. People walking dogs, a child eating something, a man on a bicycle moving too fast for the pavement. Her friend arrived at 2 exactly. They hugged. They went inside. Her friend's name was Joe. Joe was from Australia, living in the same city now for 3 years. They had met in a cooking class 2 months before. Joe talked a lot, warmly, easily, the way some people do, like talking costs them nothing. She liked that about Joe. She also found it slightly terrifying. They sat down. A waiter came. Joe ordered first. Then the waiter looked at her. She had been reading the menu, but also thinking about something else. A sentence she wanted to say to Joe about her week. She had been building it in her head since the morning. It was long. It had a conditional clause and a word she wasn't sure how to pronounce, and a structure she had seen in a grammar book but never actually used out loud. She looked at the menu. She looked at the waiter. "One tea, please," she said, "with milk. Simple, clean, done." The waiter laughed. She put the menu down. Joe started talking about her week, something about her neighbor, a broken window, a conversation that went wrong. She listened, not translating, just receiving, and understood most of it. When Joe finished, she looked at her and said, "That sounds very stressful." Joe laughed. It really was. 4 words. That sounds very stressful. She had almost said something longer, something about how situations like that can be quite difficult to navigate. A sentence she had constructed carefully, with correct grammar. That would have taken her 6 seconds to produce and sounded nothing like how she actually thought. Instead, 4 words, real ones, immediate ones. Joe had left. The conversation had moved forward. This was the thing she was learning slowly, week by week, conversation by conversation. Complicated sentences were not better sentences. They were just harder to say and sometimes harder to understand. Simple English was not lazy English, it was honest English. It arrived. The tea came. She wrapped her hands around the cup. Joe asked about her week. She took a small breath. She thought about the complicated version, the long sentence with a conditional clause, still sitting in her head, still waiting. She left it there. My week was okay, she said. I was tired. Work was busy. But Friday was good. I went for a walk by the river. Joe nodded. I love that walk. Which part? Near the old bridge. In the morning. It was quiet. That's the best time, Joe said. They were talking easily about a walk by a river. She had used maybe 30 words in total. No conditional clauses, no grammar book structures. Just what happened, how it felt, where she was. And Joe was listening, actually listening, leaning slightly forward, cup in hand, interested. I trust my voice. She felt this now as a small, warm fact. Later, Joe said something that moved too fast. A question she caught ever and before and when you were, and then lost the end. The old habit said, nod, smile, say yes or and hope the conversation moves on. She didn't do that. Sorry, she said. Can you say that again? More slowly? Joe repeated it without any impatience. I asked, have you ever lived in another city before this one? Oh, she smiled. Yes, one time for 2 years. I liked it, but I missed home. Where was home? Far from here, she said. And then, because it was true and simple and enough, but I don't miss it now. Joe smiled at that. Something in the smile said, I understand that feeling. No complicated grammar had created that moment. Just a true sentence, said simply, landing exactly where it needed to. I do not let mistakes stop me. And she hadn't. She had asked Joe to repeat. She had used basic words. She had said something real. It had worked. They stayed in the cafe for 2 hours. She didn't say everything she thought. Some ideas stayed inside, not from fear, but because the simple version was better and she was still finding it. That was okay. That was part of it. When they said goodbye outside, Joel said, same time next week? Yes, she said, I'd like that. 6 words, the right ones. She walked home slowly. The city was doing its afternoon things, loud and indifferent and full of conversations she didn't need to understand. She thought about the sentences she had built that morning. The long one, the conditional clause. She had never used it. She didn't miss it. Simple had been enough. Simple, she was learning, was not less. It was just cleaner, like a window without curtains. You could see more through it. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the story. Thanks a lot for being here for 10 days. Be sure your English now is much better than when we started. See you next video. Bye.